All right, all right. Good evening for those who are here in New York, and good morning to those who are in the Philippines on the opposite side of the world. I am trying to figure out how to do a solo thing. Here we go. You can see my face. It is blown up a little too much. Now that's a little better. Thank you, everyone, so much for joining us here in the evening in New York or in the morning over in the Philippines. This is our 30th episode of the Rinayung web series, and we're very lucky to have you all here, as well as a bunch of scholars from Mindanao to talk to us today. And since we're still in the pandemic, please keep abreast of all public health measures. Thank you very much. Next slide, Viv.
Okay. Just to introduce a little bit more about tonight and some of the guidelines. So Rinayung is a series that is going to be broadcasted on Sindaw's Facebook page, and it is a live event. So all that you're seeing right now, the speakers, they're tuning in live from their respective areas, and everything that you post, whether in the comments or questions, will also be posted live. So just be a little bit mindful about some of the things that you will be posting, but we do encourage it. And also about content advisory, there might be some things that will be mentioned tonight that might bring up uncomfortable topics, and that is not in Sindow's or the speaker's intention to do so. But if it ever does come up, there's Jerome, me. You can private message us, and we will be glad to address it. Our intention for the whole Rinayung series is more to bring awareness to an Indigenous group that does not have a lot of limelight to them or that is not popularly talked about. And we just want to be mindful that our intention is to educate and not to harm anyone. And in addition to that, all the speakers and moderators that you see here on the screen are volunteering their time to speak on the behalf of these topics. And like I said before, if there are any questions or comments, I encourage everyone to put it in the Facebook comment section. We will be addressing it probably at the end of the show when there is the Q&A portion. Thank you. Oh, Jerome, you're mute.
It is clear I need a vacation now. I'm forgetting how to use technology. Thanks, Vivian. So now I'm going to turn this over briefly to Elnora Abilio from SEAP to give us some opening remarks.
Hello, everyone. So, Mayong buntag for those in the Philippines. Warm greetings for those in the US and the Northern Hemisphere. So, literally, it's getting hot here because it's summer in the Philippines. I am Elnora Ibilio. I'm speaking on behalf of the Philippine alumni of the 20th Ship for Southeast Asian Youth Program, who are co-producing this forum under the initiative of our co-alumni Ayesa Abubakar, in collaboration with Sindaw, Moropreneur, and Mindanao. Daghang salamat and thank you for attending this forum. So mainit, it's hot because it's summer here. Pero mainit din ngayon because our real and virtual social sphere is simmering with a lot of issues. Simmering kay ginaluto pa lang, wala pa naluto. It's not cooked yet. What is exciting is that we all can share to the outcome of this cooking process. If we get it right, there's a big possibility na namit good, delicious ang atong kaunan after. We will all share in a good meal. But if we fail, paitsad kaayo, antos tang tanan. In the hope of enriching our understanding of what goes into the pot of the elections, nation building, democracy, however you call it, um, enriching our knowledge is one of the ways we can ensure that the meal we will share after is tasty and good for our social and political health. We are hoping that this forum will give us a better perspective of one of the key ingredients that will go into the pot, Mindanao, in particular, our concerns for the Bangsamoro. I am very grateful to our panel speakers and moderators for taking time and sharing their knowledge in this forum. I am honored to have with us today Professor Rifa Kagoko Guiam, Professor Rudy Rudil, Professor Yasmin Monir, and moderators Selahuddin Hashim and Mam Carol Arguidas. We have with us expert whose knowledge and insight is not only built with academic training and pursuits, but also deeply rooted in their lived experience as residents of Mindanao. We are looking forward to learning from our panel and moderators this morning. I'm grateful for the hard work of our co-producers who made this forum possible. We have Sindaw, a Filipino cultural group based in New York, the Moropreneur Incorporated based in Cotabato City, and Mindanews.com, a popular news media in the field of peace journalism in Mindanao. On behalf of Batch 93 of the Ship for Southeast Asian Youth Program Philippine Alumni Association, daghang salamat for being part of this forum. We hope that after this activity, lahat tayo may baon na dagdag na kaalaman na magbibigay sa ating lahat ng lakas at mas malinaw na pagtingin as we take on our challenges, lalo na nitong parating na eleksyon. Isang bangka tayo. Welcome everyone to the Halalan 2022 at Ang Bangsamoro Forum.
Thank you so much, Ma'am Elnora. And now we're going to go on to our land acknowledgements. Vivian, take it away.
So as King Sindaw is striving to reclaim and also honor the indigenous people, we do want to take time to first honor the land that King Sindaw is currently on, which is the Lenape region and New York. So first we do have, one second. First we have Teresa Bearfox of the Mohawk Nation who will be singing and chanting for us. Oh.
Okay, one moment, folks. Please bear with us.
Oh, hold up.
It's good to be here with all of you. Kangyofukta is my Mohawk name. It means I'm at the back of a crowd of people or at the end of a long line of people. And I'd like to share a song with you all. It's in honor of the women. What I'm saying in the language, which is Kanyak Geha, the Mohawk language, I'm saying that women have good minds, women have good medicine, and women have a lot of strength. And the Odalit Talanya is like the generations of the teachings that have been carried on from one generation to the next. So I hope you like this song. Yung kwani kong tiyo, Neya yung kwe yung kwanong kwatelio. Yung yung kwazat santelaya. Yung ayo, weya. We hanayo, weya, 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 we hanayo, weya, 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 yo deletelane, niyakyungwe, yung kwani kong tiyo. Niyakyungwe, yung kwanong kwatelio. Niyakyungwe, Yahweh, yung kwazat santelaya. Niyak yung kwe, niyak yung kwe. Ayo, 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 kweya. We hanayo, we ahe, we ahe, we ahe, we hanayo, we ahe, we ahe, we ahe. Deo de letelane, ne yagyung kwe, ne yagyung kwe. Yoko.
So I know Teresa isn't here, but we do want to say thank you for allowing us to be able to use her voice in each land acknowledgement that we have. And then also to acknowledge the land back in the Philippines, we have Siti Obeso. She is of the Tausug Nation. One second here. Okay.
Ulaan cinta usok marurong iwan ma isog asusulan lupasong lupasong malingkat dato salit inak ipat di kami makaukat lando makusugimba kakat lupasugan dilan ulasing dayang dayang ninamo kalupahan lando namo kalasahan.
All right. Thank you, Vivian, for bringing up those land acknowledgements. We're now going to move right into the content. And actually, Vivian and I get to take a little bit of a kickback. We have moderators, Kuya Shim and Manang Carol. We're going to take over from here. And our first presenter is going to be Professor Rufa.
Hello, I am. I thought it was Ompong who will start. Anyway, hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'll try to share my screen. I thought there would be opening remarks from the moderators. So I was... Let's see. Okay. Wait a minute.
Hi, Jerome. So while Professor Rufa is arranging for her presentation, let me just greet everyone. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Good morning here in the Philippines and good evening in the US. Good day to everyone na nanonood sa atin sa iba't ibang parte ng Pilipinas. We welcome you to this webinar that tackles about the prospective impact of the upcoming elections in the May 9, 2022 elections in the Philippines. Kami po ay natutuwa. Ang dami pong nanonood sa atin. Live po tayo dito across the globe. Itong pag-uusapan natin na ito. And we're very, very happy that we have prominent speakers that will tackle issues na kailangan nating marinig. Una na dito yung mga katanungan na in these upcoming elections, bakit hindi natin nariringgan ang issue ng Bangsamoro at ng Mindanao, which is an important topic when we talk about the national elections. At ito yung bibigyan kulay ng pag-uusap na ito, at mapapakinggan natin yung ating mga kasama. Let me just call, hi Miss Carol Argiles. I think Carol is with us also from Mindanao.
Yes,
I'm trying to share my screen.
Yes po.
good morning. I thought Shim, Ayesa was going to say something first.
Yes,
Yes.
go ahead.
Ayesa?
Yes, is nasa Facebook live pa ho siya nakatingin. But
Okay.
you just have to say, greet
Very
everyone.
very quickly, today is a historic day in Mindanao, particularly for the Bangsamoro. March 18, 1936, March 18, 1968. Today is March 18, 2022. It's the 87th anniversary of the Dansalan Declaration, the 54th anniversary of the Jabida Massacre. But I will not preempt the presentations of Professors Rudy, Rodil, and Rufa Gyam, and Yasmira Moner here. Today, we are discussing not just the past, but the present and future of the Bangsamoro and of the country. We only have 52 days to Election Day on May 9, 2022. Shim?
Yes, thank you so much, Miss Carol. Just wanted to greet everyone. Thank you, Jerome and Viv, for opening these. We will handle this right after. So, Dr. Rufa, are you ready now?
Yes, I'm trying to ask or request Jerome to do the sharing for me since I sent it to him last night. Okay, thank you. Okay, next slide, please. Next, just these are just pictures. So next slide, please. Okay. Yes. Carol has pointed this out. This is very historic. In fact, in the barn today, it's a holiday because of the foundation of. This is considered the anniversary of the incident that became the foundational narrative of the Moro struggle for the right to self-determination. So actually, MNLF was not organized right after that. But there was an existing group called the Muslim Mindanao Muslim Independence Movement that was organized in 1969, right after the Jabida massacre. But it was later on named the Mindanao Independence Movement, and its known leader, Dato Udto Matalam of Maguindanao, of the Matalam clan. The armed group of this, it was considered political rather than a revolutionary group. They had a group of people who were called black shirts, and I think in the Lanao areas they call themselves the Barracudas. But there was a problem with this group because it was highly politicized, and as soon as President Marcos heard about this, he tried to use his typical divide and rule tactics with them. And it is believed to be co-opted starting in 1970 after the leaders of this group were called by President Marcos to Malacanang. And there's a popular lore about Dato Udtog Matalam receiving a gold watch from Marcos, and after that there was a disbandment of the group, and a lot of local datus were also enticed to surrender. Among them, Dato Tukaw Mastura, who was offered a mayoralty post in now Sultan Kudarat. In 1970, another group was organized called the Bangsamoro Liberation Organization. But then again, the Moro elites organized them. It was soon disbanded due to internal conflict among or between the older and the younger generation of Moro leaders. The younger generation, who were more of the activist genre, looked at the or perceived the older generation of moral leaders as antiquated in their approaches and also as corrupt. I mean, the corruption, I think, stemmed from the older leaders accepting both privilege and power perks given by Marcos, like becoming the local datos, becoming leaders of local government units in the region. In 1972, the leaders of the younger generation organized the Moro National Liberation Front. There's a lot of dispute on the exact date, but in the book of Lela Garner Noble, in the article of Lila Garner Noble or Noble, I'm not sure how whether this woman is a foreigner. So it was established in 1972, and I think a lot of people who have studied the Mindanao history of conflict are familiar with this flag. Next, please. So this was the day of the so-called massacre, but a lot of writers who want uh, to destroy this narrative looks at it as a hoax. One of these is a popular, or I don't know, is a columnist with Manila Times, who said that the Jubida massacre in Corridor was a huge hoax. But of course, there are evidences about it, and in 2013, Philippine government acknowledged it to have happened. So it was called the Jabida Massacre, referring to the group of recruits who were trained in Corregidor Island. These recruits were mostly Tausug from Sulu and Tawi-Tawi provinces. And this skull insignia was part of their uniform. And there are also some disputes on the exact number of trainees killed, but the government, the Philippine government acknowledged that it has, I mean, the Philippine military has caused this massacre to happen. So if people will consider this as a hoax, it is a question on why the Philippine government entered into a series of peace talks with both the Moro National Liberation Front and its recent iteration, the Moro Islamic Liberation Front. Why was there a huge effort to come to an agreement with these groups if the foundational narrative was a hoax? Next, please. There were also several ethnic-based factions of the MNLF, but it was considered as just still MNLF, but they were ethnic identity-based. For example, the Moro National Liberation Front, organized by Dimas Pundato from the Maranao ethno-linguistic group. And then by 1977, Salamat Hashim of Maguindanao, who was the co-founder of the original MNLF, together with Ms. Wari, organized his own group, the Moro Islamic Liberation Front, although before it was called the New MNLF. Of course, we already also know that in the 1990s, some Tausug led by Jandralani created or organized Abu Sayyaf. Next, please. Okay, so the MILF broke away from Ms. Wari's leadership in the 1970s, especially towards the later part of the decade, specifically in 1977. It was first known as I said, the new MNLF, but it was changed to Moro Islamic Liberation Front to distinguish it from the MNLF. Largely, according to several accounts, it was the result of disagreements with the way Nur Miswari was leading the group, allegedly because he was a kind of a dictator leader for them. And they tried to espouse a moderate stance vis-a-vis Philippine government in accepting a meaningful autonomy rather than independence. But among these first attacks was done in 1977, just right after the signing of the Tripoli Agreement between the MNLF and the government through the facilitation of the Libyan government. Among the MLF original Mujahideen were those sent for military training to Afghanistan. They also became, fighters, volunteer fighters, fighting alongside the Taliban. Its armed wing is known as the Bangsamoro Islamic Armed Forces, to make it distinguished from the breakaway faction in 2008, the Bangsamoro Islamic Freedom Fighters, or BIFF, which is now considered a violent extremist group. It has two distinctive women's groups. Those who are serving as support group to the armed forces of the BIAF is called the Social Welfare Committee. But those who were fighting alongside with the men in some occasions were called the Bangsamoro Islamic Women's Auxiliary Brigade, or the BWAB. Next, please. Okay, these are just pictures of MILF. Next, and now the Chief Minister of the newly formed Bangsamoro Autonomous Region. Okay, from a journalist perspective, the 5 Ws and 1 H of martial law, when it was declared on September 21, although there's another date for its declaration, September 23, but 1972, lasted more than a decade, declared by, of course, the President Marcos. According to Marcos, he declared martial law to stem the growing series of violent attacks by insurgent groups in the north, especially the New People's Army of the Communist Party of the Philippines, and in the Mindanao areas, according to several reports, to stem the influence of a growing Muslim secessionist movement, and this was the MNLF. But later, next slide, I'll just go back to this. Next slide. In a book written by the previous one, please. The previous one, please. In a book written by Thomas McKenna in 1998, Muslim Rebels and Rulers. I'm very familiar with this because I helped him facilitate his visits to some areas and his interviews with local Maguindanaon leaders. In his book, Muslim Rebels and Rulers, which is taken from his doctoral dissertation at the University of California, Everyday Politics and Armed Separatism in Southern Philippines. According to him, it was not martial law that created the armed Muslim insurgency, but the imposition. But it was the imposition of martial law. Let me rephrase it. The imposition of martial law was in fact the proximate cause and not the consequence of an armed Muslim insurgency against the Philippine state. In other words, what Marcos was claiming was an overreaction to some communal conflicts occurring in several parts of Mindanao, but it was not at the level where it caused a massive conflict and violence in the area. But it was the imposition of martial law that led to the unprecedented level of violence and disruption in Cotabato and all of Mindanao. And so, in other words, the Muslim insurgency, as Marcos claimed, was not the trigger for martial law. It was the other way around. The MNLF, therefore, was strengthened because of the imposition of martial law. Next, please. It's just a picture of young Moro revolutionaries crossing the Pulangi in Maguindanao. It's a very rare picture from McKenna's book. It seems that they're not fighting a war from the way their faces look. Next, please. So, what was the overall impact of martial law? It created, as I said, as I quoted McKenna, and McKenna also looked at several reports in the archives of the Mindanao Cross, where I used to be its editor-in-chief from 1991 to 1995. So there was massive level of violence and disruption in central Mindanao and in almost all areas where there were Bangsamoro. We have interviewed a lot of informants from the communities affected by conflict, and they recalled how they were like watching a movie, a war movie, when they see the jet fighters swooping down some communities, bombing several places. So there were massive atrocities, violations of human rights against the Bangsamoro, against indigenous peoples, through massacres, rapes, torture, burning of houses and entire villages, among them the burning of Holo, for example, schools and mosques, land grabbing, and we documented cases of body mutilations in Sarangani province during our work with the Transitional Justice and Reconciliation Commission. Next, please. I did an interview with a martial law survivor, and this is what he said. Na wash out daw silang lahat, meaning they lost everything. They lost their relatives' lives, and they lost a lot of farm animals, a lot of portable wealth, whatever portable wealth they had, they lost everything. Next. Okay, so in terms of a damage assessment of human resources and socioeconomic consequences, of course, a lot of people who were killed were young. And so that's already one huge opportunity costs for people who are young and would have been economically productive in their years after they finish their education. Then those opportunities were lost because they were killed when they were still very young. So more than 100,000 deaths, but the exact number is still, it ranges from 100 to 200,000. More than 1 million displaced civilians, around 200,000 people evacuated, and many of them went to Sabah. Thousands of school children dropped out of school, and thousands more fled to non-Moro or Christian-dominated areas in the South Cotabato, Sultan Kudarat, and Sarangani, and General Santos. And my own husband's family is one of them. Creating the martial law has also created new lexicon like hamleting, referring to villages that were enclosed and not where I think that's the equivalent of a present day lockdown, when villages cannot get out of their places, and if they have to buy rice, they are limited to a number of kilos depending on the number of people in their households. So by February 1975, rice production in the region, I was able to document this from the book of McKenna also, and corroborated with some data from Mindanao Cross. Rice production fell to less than 20% of the normal yield. And there were emblematic cases of human rights violations, like the Palimbang massacre that happened in September of 1974. The Tong Umapoy massacre is a lesser known massacre of young people about to attend an athletic meet in Bongao, but they were fired upon in an just going out of the island called Tong Umapoy in Tawi-Tawi. And you have a lot of rape cases reported even during the Palimbang massacre. Several victims disclosed that they were raped by soldiers. Schools and mosques and entire villages were razed to the ground. Next, please. The more intangible socio-psychological outcomes are more serious, but because it is intangible, it's very difficult to address. The trauma of seeing relatives being massacred. A good example is the death of my husband's niece right in front of her parents. She was just placed in a crib outside their house in the veranda. She was hit by a shrapnel from a 105 shelled 200 meters away. Frequent evacuation and its effects on women and children suffering from involuntary peeing or sweating, and people asking, why are we made to suffer in a war that we did not make? Sounds of guns are immediate causes of nervousness. For example, I was doing an FGD in a mountainous barangay in Kabakan, and suddenly there was thunder, and everyone took cover, hiding underneath the table, and they said it's an effect of their being traumatized by the war. War orphans bearing the pain of loss. These experiences have left indelible scars among them. Some survivors bear the evidence of having suffered during the war through their scars and present disabilities. And even one of the key figures in the MNLF Central Committee, Haja Bainon Caron, still retains a piece of metal inside her leg until now. She was hit in the leg. She was fighting alongside her male combatant colleagues. Some people, when we interviewed who survived the wars in the 1970s, said that this is a pain that cannot be healed by painkillers. And this also created a whole consciousness of looking at the Moro as among the dregs of the earth, being called very, very derogatory names like Muklo for Ilonggos, Mamamatay Tao, or even thieves and kidnappers, rebelde, things like that. Next. In terms of political and military consequences, the tactics used by the President Marcos at the time created a group of a defiant and compliant local elite, but mostly compliant because the datus were not powerful without political power. And so when they were offered to become mayors in their own territories, it became a springboard for them to become powerful in their own fiefdoms, and that has created our political clans today, who are also fighting against each other to ensure that their power is retained within their own families. Creation of strategic hamlets among different communities, especially in Maguindanao. Forming assassination squads, enhanced surveillance techniques to track down rebels. So by 1976, the war in Cotabato stalemated with neither military nor MNLF claiming critical victory, although by admission, the late Fortunato Abad claimed that the Central Mindanao Command was already apprehensive of a growing influence of the MNLF, and that is why the Palimbang massacre happened. Next, please. Okay, so in summary, according to our transitional justice series of listening processes in more than 200 communities affected by the war during the martial law years, it can be summarized into four major themes. These are the effects of the more than one decade of martial law in the Bangsamoro. Uh, Legitimate grievances are still held by Bangsamoro and indigenous peoples in the area. Historical injustice, human rights violations, and marginalization through land dispossession. Next, please. Just to talk about legitimate grievances in detail, this includes discrimination and prejudice due to stereotypical uh, views about Moro, that they are traitors or thieves, not being able to access former sources of social protection because of evacuation. The clan or the family becomes the social is supposed to be the sources of social protection, but in evacuation or in conflict context, this disappears since people have to evacuate to safer places, usually in places where they have no relatives. Being deprived of opportunities for scholarships, capacity building, and other benefits enjoyed by the majority population. Very low economic indicators and overall human development indices like high illiteracy rates, especially among women, abject poverty. The provinces in the autonomous region have always been the poorest in the Philippine different administrative regions. Recurring violent incidents, both vertical and horizontal. And in many places, conflicts have become a daily reality of many communities, small communities in the hard to reach areas in Mindanao. Next, please. This is the exclusion of the Philippine Bangsamoro narrative in the Philippine National Historical Narrative. And even despite the presence of a law that urges the Philippine educational system to integrate Bangsamoro history in the different levels of education, still there is no systematic implementation of integrating Bangsamoro history. It's in MSU in the university where I retired from. It's offered, but again, it has no definite or common resource material. Part of the historical injustices among the Bangsamoro or the many places are named after people who have caused damage to Bangsamoro. For example, Gonzalo Sionco Camp of the 6 ID in Cotabato is named after the guy who ordered the Palimbang massacre to happen. Plaza Pershing is named after General Pershing, who was responsible for the carnage of thousands of Tausug in Budahu. And of course, my own city, General Santos City, is named after General Paulino Santos, who was directed by President Quezon to uh, pacify or to pave the way for migrants from Luzon and the Visayas to come to South Cotabato and to clear the way for them by neutralizing those who will oppose it coming from the Moro and IP residents in the area. Next. Next, please. Of course, I already mentioned the massacres, tortures of people who were in detention, and marginalization through land dispossession, land grabbing. A lot of military generals own land holdings, massive land holdings in the Bangsamoro area. When they were assigned as officers, military officers here in the Bangsamoro, one of them is Juan Ponce Enrile, uh, who used to own huge tracts of land in Basilan, although these lands are slowly being bought by the Yakan elite in the province. titling of ancestral lands by settlers because of the ignorance of many Bangsamoro and IP about the torrent system of land titling, displacement of entire communities, especially in Esperanza. For example, Esperanza is a town in Sultan Kudarat. It was not Esperanza to start with. It was called Esperanza when several migrants from Iloilo came and drove away the local Maguindanao to settle in a far community in Santo Niño. Unfair distribution of land rights, and I think Ompong knows a lot about this, about how settlers were entitled to more lands than the indigenous peoples, and not recognizing ancestral land rights, both of the Bangsamoro and indigenous peoples in the area. So this led to the passage of land laws became an instrument for disenfranchising the indigenous Moro and non-Moro peoples in the area of the rights to their ancestral lands, just because they did not register them in the Western titling system. Next, please. We're almost towards the end. So just to give you an idea of the result of the peace process as a result after the signing of the peace agreements with MNLF. And so you have these different uh, accords, starting with the Tripoli Agreement of 1976 and the creation of an autonomous region through Presidential Decree 1618. And right after martial law, in the 1987 Constitution, you have Article 10 in the Constitution that created the autonomous region. And so you have this. Actually, it's already beyond the coverage. So I'm going to just go through this very quickly with the slides. Next, please. These are episodes of fighting and talking with MNLF timeline. Then you have next the peace process with the MILF. It started with an agreement of the general cessation of hostilities from 1997, July 18, and you have all these different accords like the framework agreement on the Bangsamoro in 2012 to the signing of the comprehensive agreement on the Bangsamoro 2014. Next, please. Just quickly, because it's already, but because these are the offshoots of the huge wars during martial law. And this is the timeline of the MILF. Next. You will notice that there are fighting and talking episodes. So now we are having the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao. And if you will see and hear local news, all these mechanisms have not created a fully peaceful region. We still have several incidences of violent conflicts at present. Next slide, please. So I'm closing my presentation with this scenario of what we are facing, despite the fact that we already have a BARM now. The risks and opportunities are there. The elections in less than 2 months from now might prove to be a golden opportunity, or it could also turn our lives around again, turn our lives upside down again. We hope not. Of course, you have COVID intervening and changing several rules of the game along the way, starting in 2020. And right now, we have several problematic issues surrounding the transition because of a lot of things happening on the ground and within the BTA itself, the transitional parliament, there's a lack of unity among Moro leaders. In fact, if you look at the provincial competitors for local political power, they're all coming from the same family, fighting each other for a place in the local government unit. And also in the creation of the bureaucracy in the BARM, the rather fragile capacities for bureaucratic processes within it, and the intractable problems surrounding people being hired on the basis of trust rather than competence. And we have very, very real issues affecting normalization and decommissioning of MILF as promised in the comprehensive agreement on the Bangsamoro. So there are challenges ahead, but there is also a high level of commitment among those who are working in the region to ensure that they are able to deal with these challenges to create a legacy for the future. But again, we have to see that there are also many intervening variables within this atmosphere of high levels of commitment and the promise of not having not to elect people who created the historical injustice in the past, as pronounced by MILF leaders in the recent visit of the vice president in the region. So with this, I end my presentation. Thank you very much for listening, and I welcome any questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rufa. Dr. Rufa is now retired, full professor 3. Yes, she's enjoying the life of being free, and she used to work as a full professor 3 at the sociology department and the College of the Social Sciences and Humanities of the Mindanao State University, General Santos City. Kung naalala po natin, madami hong naiambag sa atin si Dr. Rufa. Siya po ngayon ay soft after ito, isa sa mga talagang sikat na speakers at hinahanap ng ating mga different organizations to talk about women, peace, security, and Mindanao. At pinag-uusapan natin yung kanyang kahusayan. Siya lang naman ang kauna-unahang woman editor of the Mindanao Cross. At madami na siyang nagawa at naiakda ng mga research paper kagaya ho nung groundbreaking na work on the interface of the illicit drugs, armed conflict and politics in Maguindanao and Lanao del Sur. Meron ito sa chapter na book na Out of the Shadows, Armed Violence, and the Real Economy in Mindanao. Kaya natutuwa kami for that. I know a lot of us have so many questions. Ang daming mga gustong magbigay ng kanilang mga opinion din. But we will have that. We will pause for that dahil may oras so tayo for Q&A at the end of the presentations of our two more speakers. But can I ask Miss Carol if you have anything to say, Miss Carol? Medyo may problem sa audio ni Miss Carol. So, in the interest of time, we need to now proceed with the next speaker. At ang pag-uusapan naman natin kanina kung yung lecture ho yung presentation ni Dr. Rufa tackles about an important period of our history, the martial law, and how MNLF and MILF and the present situations that we are into happened. Pero gusto rin nating balikan paano nga ba nag-ugat ang lahat ng ito? Paano nagkaroon ng iba't ibang pananaw, iba't ibang kultura dito sa Mindanao? At natutuwa tayo dahil kasama naman natin ngayon to give us the history of Sulu and Mindanao. Our next speaker is a well-known Mindanao historian. He used to be the member of the GPH MILF negotiating panel, currently in Iligan City right now. Help me welcome Professor Rudy Rudel.
Sandali, I requested na ako yung huli. I am having problem with those.
Okay, Paul.
Pwede? Ako yung last. Okay lang.
Oh, sige. Okay. Since merong mga technical challenges na kinakaharap po ngayon, we're gonna swap the presentations. So after the martial law, and then we have the peace agreement, it's also a little bit surprising na nagkaroon pa rin tayo ng mga malalaking problema. So we thought that with the Autonomous Region Muslim Mindanao, issues on security and peace can be addressed. But in 2017, and a new incident happened that created a lot of, yung parang ang sinasabi nga ng iba, yung nangyaring ito, parang lahat ng ginawa nating efforts on peace building ay mukhang challenge yung situation na ito. And we're talking about the incident that happened in Marawi City, the Marawi siege in 2017. At makakasama natin to give us a presentations about that, to tackle the issue of the Marawi siege, the Assistant Professor of the Political Science and Acting Director of the Institute for Peace and Development in Mindanao of the MSU Iligan Institute of Technologies, is a very vocal and a staunch advocate of Bangsamoro rights also. Our good friend, she's a youth leader, Assistant Professor Yasmira Muner.
Thank you so much, Shim. And before I start my presentation, allow me to greet you the universal Islamic greetings of peace. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good evening, New York, and magandang umaga, Pilipinas. Thank you so much to the organizers for giving me this platform to share about what happened in Marawi, which is basically, part of the continuing struggle for a genuine transformative process that will hopefully change the life of every Filipino man and woman that who happens to also ascribe to the Bangsamoro identity. So, of course, I am a Maranao. I am also a researcher of the Bangsamoro peace process, and my presentation is based on my offline and online conversation with the Bangsamoro study group from different sectors, from women, especially the dynamism of the youth of Marawi and Mindanao del Sur. And of course, we are doing this a normalization process as a discourse and as a kind of advocacy that is very important in understanding what really happened in Marawi and why it happened in the first place, despite the lack of a fact-finding commission or a legislative inquiry in aid of legislation. So, so let me screen share. Hold on. All right, so I presented just a very few slides because it's wonderful that Ma'am Rufa was able to really lay down the historical dimension of the Bangsamoro peace process, as well as the contemporary history of what we are currently laying now with the Bangsamoro, which is the transitional justice. Indeed, there is no peace without justice, and it is very much manifested with what happened in Marawi 5 years ago, almost 5 years ago. Now, what happened was when a Daesh-inspired group led by a certain Mauti brothers, and of course, it's a combination of forces with the Abu Sayyaf group, has waged an attack in the lone Islamic city in the country, in Marawi City. That was also the time when the second martial law was declared by the president, the current administration. And that particular battle has caused indelible damage, not just to property, but very importantly, it has also reopened wounds. That was basically what Mamufa said, that there is the suppression of the narrative of that significant minority population that has been minoritized by state-sponsored systemic discrimination, and which is the unspoken narrative. That's why the Battle of Marawi happened in the first place. The attack of the Marawi city on the 23rd of May, on the eve of the holy month of Ramadan, led to a 5-month-long protracted war that lasted for 5 months with the government's forces and resulted in the massive destruction of property and, of course, people, which is not supposed to be collateral damage, helpless civilians, and of course the soldiers, no, and civilians, which according to this is even could be even more, because there are unreported deaths, no. At this hour, there's also an ongoing conversation of the Marawi reclaiming movement, in partnership, of course, with the different CSOs in Lanao del Sur, in commemoration of the Jabeda, and of course the Marawi Dansalan Declaration, which is precisely why we're doing this continuous conversation about the need to include the Mindanao issue, the Bangsamoro narrative in the fora, or in the discourse of the national peace process, and healing and reconciliation. Of course, I just quoted here, and this is from the social media of the Reclaiming Marawi movement, which is a multi-stakeholder, people-centered organization about, which is basically represents what is the state of the Marawi, which reflects the kind of state-centric narrative that is currently what is in the mainstream discourse, and the repressed voices of those who became the gravely abused, especially because they were dislocated from their lands, from their identity in Marawi. No, is basically what is left unaddressed in the current Marawi rehabilitation. Sabi po ng isang residente, no, ng isang IDP, masusukat ang totoong status ng Marawi rehabilitation sa tunay na kalagayan ng mga internally displaced persons or IDPs na 40 taon na pong nakikitira sa mga temporary shelters at sa mga house-based na nakakalat pa sa iba't ibang panig ng bansa. Nahaharap sila sa patong-patong na suliranin at kahirapan na pinapalala pa ng pandemya. Ang buhay at kalagayan ng mga IDPs ang dapat na mauna na binibigyan ng kaukulang pansin at dapat na natutugunan, at hindi lamang ang mga gusali at infrastructure. Hindi po lingid sa ating kaalaman that indeed what was promised is that by the end of 2021, that was last year, there will be the completion of the Marawi rehabilitation. But what we can see there are just physical infrastructure development. Of course, we are not saying that physical infrastructure and reconstruction is not important, but more important is that reassurance, that's rights-based approach to rehabilitation. Because what the current administration and the Philippine government still refuses to understand in this crisis, which is still ongoing, by the way, is that the struggle of Bangsamoro people, Maranao by identity, by ethnicity, is a continuing struggle for the recognition of their identity, of their long-held cultural tradition, and of their religion, which basically is informed by how they live their life. And because the national government has given this in a form of political accommodation with the enactment of RA 11054, and yet on the other hand, there is still this very hardcore militaristic approach. I mean, the second martial law lasted for 2.5 years. It ended December 31 of 2019, which did not end the continuous rebellion in the Philippine South. As we can see, few weeks ago, what happened in Maging, where there were still a lot of recruitment happening. There's even if most of those initial founder of the Daesh-inspired Lanao ISIS has been did surrender. Some of them died, but there's still regrouping of this, which is according to a study conducted by MSU Marawi IPDM, is much more dangerous because of this fears. These are young people, fearless, adventurous, because they see that the state is not accommodating and is not recognizing their political identity and very especially the right to participate in governance. Also very, very much important is that this year, the Marawi Reclaiming Movement, and particularly the woman in the photo is saying that dagdag po na pahirap ang pandemya sa mahirap na pamumuhay na na-experience po nila ngayon sa mga evacuation center. As you can see, Maranao people are very much clannish, and so even if by statistics that hindi, marami na po talagang nakatira doon sa mga transitional shelters na ginagawa na pong permanent shelters, pero karamihan po ay nandoon pa rin sa mga home-based evacuation center. But it doesn't mean that they are there in their relatives. Of course, they need to have the sustainable income, and they need, and not, more than just the sustainable income, the right to go back, to their ancestral lands. We know for one that the issue of Marawi is more than just the reclamation of that supposedly alleged new military area, which has been still unclear if that military site near Ground Zero would be continue to be established, is part of the ongoing dialogue between the Philippine government and, of course, through the task force Bangon Marawi and the civil society in Marawi and Lanao del Sur, and of course with the LGU. That is still part of the ongoing conversation that we see is still not part of the national election agenda. We believe that the genuine, conflict-sensitive, peace-promoting approach to Marawi rehabilitation, of the need to really understand the dynamics of the complexity of the Marawi crisis, is important towards rebuilding rebuilding back better, the Marawi as it is, which is very symbolic to the Bangsamoro because it is known as an Islamic city. So, my dear ladies and gentlemen and friends, after 5 years since the Marawi crisis happened, we are still yet to see and feel durable solutions to the Marawi rehabilitation remain to be the battle cry of the hundreds of Marawi IDPs scattered around the region. There's still a need to promote and have a truly, genuinely transparent, accountable, and participatory governance processes that should be strengthened or even promoted at the moment, should continue in order to have a context inform what happened in Marawi did not just happen overnight. In fact, way back in 2012, Marawi intelligence have already been knew about this one because there was an Indonesian militant jihadist who died in an armed encounter. And even if that second martial law was still ongoing, there were suicide bombing happening for the first time in the Philippine South, in Sulu. So that the militaristic hardcore approaches would never be effective if we genuinely address the peace and security problem in Mindanao. Up until now, and this is the resentment of many Maranaos, nobody, not even in the wildest imagination of the people of Ranao, of the Maranaos, that the Marawi siege could happen. And so from the discourse of the president when he said that I will not going to use as public fund in rebuilding Marawi because they did that to themselves, is really such a very hurtful and painful way of really trying to relegate the people's aspiration of truly having a healing process, amidst the ongoing transitional governance in the BARM. And this is the battle cries, even to have a legislative inquiry in aid of legislation on why the Marawi siege happened, so that in knowing that, we could never have another similar incident from happening again. Hashtag never again. And of course, the Marawi rehabilitation and reconstruction should be a national election issue. That we need to vote for the highest position in office that will going to put the Mindanao peace process in his or her agenda. And this is one of the main platform of our national presidential because she's been doing that, at the moment, in his Angat Buhay platform. So this is something that I wanted to say. And I, as the current OIC of the IPDM, we believe that genuine transformation of the current transitional government in the BARM could only take place when there is national healing and the Bangsamoro discourse will be part of the national discourse. Maraming salamat po, Sanggibu Salamat, and muli magandang umaga. Good day sa ating lahat.
Thank you, Yas. We hear you loud and clear. The issue of Marawi, Bangsamoro, as well as the entire Mindanao is an important platform that needs to be included in the agenda of the presidentials. And we're very happy with that presentations. We have heard a lot of insights about it, some ways for the government to tackle the issues in Marawi. Pag-uusapan natin yan and mamaya siguradong may mga katanungan tungkol dyan. And now, babalik tayo ng kaunti sa kasaysayan. We've tackled already about paano nga ba nagkaroon ng epekto yung martial law at the different groups ng Bangsamoro. And then we also have yung ating peace agreement right now. And then we presented to you what happened in Marawi City in 2017 and its impact to our society in the peace building effort. Babalik tayo ng kaunti sa kasaysayan to understand really ano nga ba yung setup dito sa Mindanao? Sino-sino yung mga tao nga ba dito? And how did the inhabitants in the area relate to one another? Paano nagkaroon ng pagbabago? We all know that the Bangsamoro and the IPs are the one dwelling in the area. Paano nagkaroon tayo ng ganito na diverse na society? At tutulungan tayong mas maintindihan yan ng ating professor na kilalang kilala, historian dito sa Mindanao, and also parte ng GPH MILF negotiating panel. I think he's very ready now to share the history of Sulu and Mindanao. We have Professor Rudy Rudel. Hi, Prof.
Thank you. Okay na ba?
Okay na po.
Thank you very much. Pero, teka muna, paano yung papasok yung slides? There. Yan naman. How do you...
Yes po. Click nyo po
okay.
again yung sa share.
Share. Yan naman. Share. Yan.
Yes po. And then the slides. Opo.
And the slides. Where is that?
Meron ho kayo dyan, pagkabukas nyo sa slides, yung your computer. Pero meron din pong slides na naka-ready na po kay Jerome. But I guess Professor Rudel wanted to control the PowerPoint. Sige po.
Wag na lang ako.
Yes, Prof.
High-tech problem ito. Kayo na lang. So I give up. Okay. So tanggalin ko na to.
Mm-hmm. If you're having a problem with the slides, si Jerome na lang po yung mag-share sa screen. Is that okay with you?
Teka muna. Sige na lang.
Okay. Sige. Okay, eto na po. Online na po tayo, Prof. Rudy. So I think yun po yung mga katanungan natin. Sige ho. Ano ho yung kasaysayan ng mga tao sa Sulu at Mindanao and yung mga inhabitants natin dito?
Diretso na ako.
Yes po.
I was telling you, yes. Yes, I need more than time for history. Pero
Okay
pag
po, sige
binigyan
po,
mo ako
Prof.
20 minutes, hindi kasya. Anyway, what I have here is a simplified presentation. Just remember the maps and the data. And then, nagpadala ako ng overview ng history which you can get from IESA. Okay, you can contact me directly. I can send it to you. Anyway, ito yung gusto kong ipakita, no? Simplified ito, no? So, saan tayo nagmula? That's Austronesian, Malaya, Polynesian. Ilang tao? We have more than 110 tribes in Mindanao, in the Philippines. Dito sa Mindanao, Sulu, about 35 tribes na lumad and Muslims na 13. Ngayon, I am not using the translation, the definition of the anthropologist. Ang ginagamit ko, yung definition ng lumad mismo. When they say tribe, that is exactly what I mean. Okay. And then, number 2, nagsimula yung sabihin natin introduction of external forces. The first was Islam. Started in, may mali, 1380 dapat. Not 380. Sorry, paki-correct. And then, as early as 1450, nagkaroon ng Sultanate of Sulu and Maguindanao 1619. What this means is that long before we had the Philippines as a state, meron ang Sultanate of Sulu and Maguindanao. The next external force that came in is the Spanish. Dala nila yung Christianity. And then dyan nagsimula yung gulong malaki, no? 333 years of war, which left us with sama ng loob for between Muslims and Christians, complete with labels. So, pumasok dyan yung American. They brought their English, the military strategy, and democracy. Kasama yung education. Incidentally, isang kwento lang, ano? Actually, I don't want to talk in English anymore when I discuss history for the simple reason, when I discovered in 1971 that English was an integral part of military strategy. Kung ganun pala ang usapan, huwag na. So I'll stop talking. Akala ko kayang-kaya ko. So pinagpawisan ako for three months before I could say that I can talk Philippine history using my own language. So ganon. Tapos munod yung ito, I'm raising number 5. We need to raise this issue because when the Americans came, Spanish and Americans did not talk about our states, Sultanate, Maguindanao, and newly independent Pilipinas. So sa kanila, wala yun. Pero in our history, correcting our own history, we should be able to say that we were 3 states in 1898, Sulu Sultanate, Maguindanao, and Philippines. Now, it was the Americans who declared the Philippine Islands an insular possession. Ibig sabihin, kanila, tayo. That's what we get for losing the war anyway. So, sumunod, Republic of the Philippines. And then sumunod, Bangsamoro. Ngayon, before I proceed, I want to thank Lupa and Yas kasi mataling history ang na-discuss nila kaagad. So, continue lang yung trabaho ko. So, next please. Ayan. Dito tayo nanggaling. This is one drawing made by the experts. Diyan kayo nagsimula. Ang ibig sabihin nito, there is one language in the various tribes. When we say, nagmula tayo sa isang pusod, meaning we came from the umbilical cord. Kaya yung Austronesian, Malaya Polynesian origin. Next, please. So, ito yung symbol na unang dumating na puwersa, yung Islam. Because of that, nagkaroon ng emergence ng political structures like the Sultanate. Yung gano'n. Tapos, sumunod, please. Ito, sa translate, sa definition ko ng colonialism, I don't start with 1521 or 1565. I start 1493 kasi doon nagsimula ang problema natin. It's too bad that it was the Pope who divided the world into two. One part goes to Portugal and the other side to Spain. Pinakati tayo. And then, doon nagsimula. And then, that Pope was responsible for the creation of Spanish. What was yung sunod-sunod, no? From, I forgot about it. Sorry. Whatever I forget today, ando sa overview, no? So yung map na yan, notice, dalawa yung color. Yung isa, yung sa middle, yung dots, yung isa, yung violet. Ibig sabihin, they adjusted the division. Okay, next please. Ito, this is showing the map. Ito, resulta ito ng mapa ng mga Jesuit missionaries who prepared these maps. Tapos, ginawa ko lang yung tatlo para makita nyo na pare-pareho yung laman yan. Ano? Now, notice, tignan nyo sa kaliwa, sa kanan. Yung red, so sorry, hindi ko, mahirap paliwanag dito. No? Dito. Yung brown dito, this map was taken from those maps. Ginawa ito ni Abe Padilla ng UP Manila. Sabi diyan, yung triangle, Christianos, sunod yung pink box in PLS, sunod yung Moros. Notice, yung green, ito yung Muslim, yung Moros, yung blue, yung tinatawag lumad ngayon, and then, incidentally, controversially ngayon. And then yung brown, yan lang in 1898. Yan lang ang Christianized portion ng Mindanao. and Sulu. Less than 200,000 people. And these are mostly local converts. They are not settlers. These are the only places the Spanish can claim when called their own. So, tapos yung sumunod dito, ito naman yung itsura. Kung pinagsama mo yung Sultanate of Maguindanao, yung Patapangang Coronao at Sultanate of Sulu, ito ang lalabas. This is the approximate understanding ng American maps na susunod. Ano? Hindi kasali yung Maguindanao, Agusan, Surigao, Misamis. So, next, ito. What did Americans did? Ang una nilang ginawa, yung structuring ng political system. Notice, ako yung lagay ng color, ha? On the special yung Moro and Agusan. Yung Agusan is a combination of Bukidnon and Agusan. Mainly Luman, indigenous. Yung blue, ito yung sinasabi kong brown kanina, na Christianized person. Yung blue, ay yung red, yan yung Moro. Now notice, ano ibig sabihin ng special? What the Americans mean is that this is preparatory to becoming regular political units. Next, regular. Ano yung regular? Misamis refers to the present Misamis Occidental and Oriental. Surigao, yung sa kanan. No? No. When the Americans came, they conducted a census, and the result of that census, sabi nila, ganito pala ang Philippines. Dalawang klase lang yung tao dito. Christian and non-Christian. Yung Christian, civilized, and yung non-Christian, composed of Moros and wild tribes. And again, civilized yung Christian, uncivilized yung kabila. So, in other words, nagdagdag sila ng tag o label sa atin. So, ito yung lumabas. This lasted only for parang 10 years isip preparation. So, ganito yung nangyari sa Cotabato. Just an example. Ganun kabilis paano nagkaroon ng resettlement in Mindanao and Sulu. Sa Cotabato, nagsimula yung resettlement 1913. The first census after that was 1918, followed by 39, tunod yung inilagay ko dito, hindi yung 1960, at yung 70 yung ginawa ko. Ano? Ganon. Yung green is the Muslim. Yung lumad, itong violet. Yung yellow, yan yung settlers. Yung sa ibaba, after 60 years, starting from 1913, ganito yung nangyari. Yung green, yun na lang naiwan. Yung yellow, ito yung settlers. Ganon kabilis. Paano baligtad yung population. Kaya malaki yung problema ngayon. Well, was this limited to Cotabato? Undivided Cotabato ito. I checked sa Bukidnon, I checked with Zamboanga, the pattern is the same. So, in the end, using 2000 census, ito yung situation ngayon. Bakit 2000? What that later? Kasi in our census, nawala yung ethnicity after 2000. Nawala na. Ngayon na, yung using ethnicity hanggang 2000 lang. So, ito yung lumabas. So, lumad, 8.9, Bangsamoro, 18.5, tapos yung mga settler, 72.5. Sunod, ganito kagulo ngayon. Hindi ito dapat natin ayusin. The first, of course, is Bangsamoro. Hindi pa ito tapos. Hanggat hindi natapos yung decommission at yung BIFF and Abu Sayyaf, we should not consider settled yung problem. Tapos, andyan yung CPP-NPA. Nandiyan pa yan. Tapos, andyan yung luman. Ngayon, I use the word luman. I know it is controversial now, pero it was the luman who decided that this should be the luman name. So, yun ang gagamitin ko. Not their controversy. Ganito yung itsura ng conflict-affected area between the GRP and the MILF. So red is the autonomous region, and the green and the other areas predominantly populated by Muslims. So, bakit wala yung Zamboanga, wala yung Jensan, wala yung Basilan, Isabela? That is their decision. This is not tawag dito. Ito yung ginawa ng GRP MINF. So I don't want to touch that. So ito yung itsura ng operation ng CPP-NPA as of 2008. I don't have a recent maps. Ito yung pinakahuli ko. So yun lang. Lahat ng pula, nandiyan yung CPP-NPA. Tapos merong isa sa Zamboanga Peninsula. Next, ano nangyari sa Muslim? Ito, ang resulta ng ARM. This is the product of peace negotiation that started in 1975. So, this is 2001. Tapos, nadagdagan ito as a result of the GRP-MNF negotiation, at napadagdag yung 67 what do we call that? Addition, puro barangay. These are, yung nakita nyo kanina, yung 1890, yung blue. Ngayon, ginawa kong pink. Scattered na yung mga luman. So, ang sa akin, one of the thoughts that naisip ko lang, a friend asked me, anong gagawin natin sa Mindanao? Coalition? Sabi ko, hindi. Ito yung naisip ko. Try people. So, dyan sa baba, Doon kailangan ng dialogue, mag-usap, kapatiran, makinig sa isa't isa, magdabayan sa isa't isa, at magbuo ng isang pangarap o larawan ng Mindanao. Nawala na yung Sulu in the process. Ang naiwan yung Mindanao sa name. Kahit yung MNLF, sila yung nagpopularize ng Mindanao. Chamorro National Liberation Front. Ngayon, saan ko nakuha yung isang bagong Mindanao? Tatlong bato, tungtungan ng palayok. Nung ginagawa ko yung isang libro ko, nagpunta ako sa Pikit, sa isang meeting na napuntahan ko, isang Team Y ang nagsasalita. Sabi niya, tapos na yung history, hindi na natin pwedeng ibalik. So sabi niya, halata na hindi na pwedeng ibalik, tayo 10%, Muslim 20%, yung settler 70%. Anong gagawin natin? Pero kami yung taga rito. So sabi nila, ganito na lang. Tignan natin ang Mindanao na isang palayok na tatlo ang tungtungan. Yung paa. Yung lumad, isang paa. Ang pangalawa, yung Muslim, Bangsamoro. At yung pangatlo, yung settler. Pero, obviously, hindi pantay. Sabi niya, huwag tayong tabingin. Simple lang. Pag tagilid yung palayok, basag yan. Sigurado. So sabi niya, paano mag-maintain na pantay yung paa. Sabi niya, huwag tayong tabingin sa population. Tabingin tayo sa dibdib. Tinuro niya yung dibdib. Sabi niya, diyan tayo pantay. Pare-pareho tayong tao. Yung importante, yung pagtanggap natin sa isa't isa. So ito naging cover ng isang libro ko. Yan ang Mindanao. Sino yung Team Y na Manobo? Team Y Ramos. Wala na siya. Pero yung wisdom niya, sa tingin ko, maganda. Palagay ko, importante itong wisdom na ito sa darating na eleksyon. Tapos itong Peace Credo, ginawa ito noong 1976 sa isang malaking meeting ng mga peace advocacy sa Cagayan de Oro. At diyan, nag-emerge itong Kalinaw, Mindanao. Totoo, ako yung gumawa, Tagalog. Pero, ang original, Kalinaw, Mindanao. Bakit Kalinaw? Yung linaw, maraming ibig sabihin sa iba't ibang tribo. Tumingin ka sa tubig, yung linaw, kita mo yung ilalim. Ibig sabihin, linaw means quiet water. Mindanao, yung ginagamit ko na spelling is W. Kasi foreign sa akin yung O. Tapos, lumad, kasi yun yung gusto ng Moro, collective name. Muslim, nagdebate yung mga Muslim participants pag sinabing Moro, nagdidebate sila. Pero pagdating sa word na Muslim, walang debate. So they decided Muslim na lang. Yung Kristiyano, lahat ng Protestant, Catholic, yun na lang yung Kristiyano. So magkakaiba tayo, pero pwede na magkaisa. Isang Diyos, we all believe in one God, isang lupain, isang adhikain, Kalinaw, Mindanao. Ngayon, translated na ito in 19 languages. Ito na ba? Tapos na. Thank you.
There you have it. Maraming salamat po, Professor Rodel. Maigsing pagbabalik tanaw ng kasaysayan ng Mindanao at ng Sulu. Paano nga ba nagsimula tayo dito with the IPs and the Bangsamoro at paano natin tinanggap yung ating mga kapatid from Luzon and Visayas and how the shift in terms of the population happened na nakaapekto nga dito sa atin. And right now, mukhang malaking bagay ito sa pagkakaroon ng mga usapin at maganda na napag-uusapan na rin ito. And now, may I ask Miss Caroline Arguiles? Hi, Miss Carol.
Yes, Shim?
Yes, go on. You may want to lead the forum now.
Yeah, okay. I think there's a question from Mr. Cesar Romero. Arnold Cesar Romero. I think this is addressed to Professor Monel. Speaking of narratives, what is the alternate narrative behind the Marawi siege? Have there been efforts to reach out to Human Rights Commission for an independent investigation on why the siege took place and lasted for so long, despite the full strength of military intelligence, firepower, and manpower versus the attackers? Professor?
Okay, thank you so much, Ma'am Carol. And to the one who asked that very, very relevant and interesting question. I think what is now being discussed from within at least the advocates of those who are really working towards a more nuanced approach or understanding of what really happened in Marawi is to look at the socio-political context where Marawi is and the continuing struggle of the Bangsamoro people for the right to self-determination. As historically, with since the Philippine government invited the Moro Revolutionary Front, then MNLF and now MILF, and of course with the comprehensive agreement on the Bangsamoro, there has been a kind of a synchronized, or the attempt to really ensure that there is a holistic understanding of the Moro right to self-determination that was, by the way, recognized by international law and of course by the Philippine state, is the need to also understand that what is being fought for so hard. And in fact, our Moro brethrens, our freedom fighters, fought hard for and died for, is the recognition of a genuine political autonomy that would reflect their cultural way of life, which is Islam. No, and in fact, that was really the narrative that is being that is how the Daesh-inspired group, the extremist group, used in recruiting young members of the terrorist organization. That's why they were able to really come up with that strong force, which is in the status quo. There is still that dominant approach where the peace process is still very much militaristic, that it's still right now, even there's still an ongoing military pursuit. No, and even despite the EO70 of the whole of nation approach in peace building, where we should engage as much stakeholders as we can, and even the security sector, using that lens of social justice, and to use the comprehensive agreement on the Bangsamoro, that lens of transitional justice, is still pretty much elusive. So I think the alternative discourse here is that allow that the state, that the national government would truly make use of, or mainstream that right to self-determination of the Bangsamoro people under the ambit of human rights and peace promoting lens, as what is in supposedly in the agreement. The genuine implementation of what was in the final peace agreement with the MNLF, and also now with the comprehensive agreement on the Bangsamoro. So there is still that kind of suppression of the narrative of the Bangsamoro people, because it's still pretty much securitized. Now, as to that second question, and I think still part of the premise, on what's the alternative narrative. I think there is that move. In fact, the Moro Consensus Group, by Brother Driza Leninding, has mobilized, and call on the Commission on Human Rights at the national level, and also at the regional level. We now have the Bangsamoro Human Rights Commission, to really look into the narratives of looting, military looting, in the area, human right abuses caused by the military, and other private individuals who are basically using that narrative, of extremism. And so, in other words, there is still, I think, because of the martial law, at that time, there was really practically, suppressed po talaga, yung bosses, nung nasa ground. So yun po talaga yung, I think that's what is really needed right now, that there is a kind of acknowledgement that there was human right abuses. That is inevitable, when there is so much power given to the security forces. And on the other hand, there is that hard approach to the security, in a very volatile, fragile context, like in Marawi and in the Bangsamoro region, which, by the way, military operation is still ongoing, because there are other armed groups that is also being currently under pursuit. So yun po, I think I might not be able to satisfactorily answer your question, but that's the ongoing discourse na pinupush po ng ating civil society organization. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And this one is for Professors Rodil and Professor Rufagyam. The recent Pulse Asia survey in February said that the leading candidate in Mindanao is Ferdinand Marcos Jr. with 68, and Robredo with 5, Isko Moreno with 8, Manny Pacquiao with 15, and Ping Lacson with 2. How do you account for this, considering that Mindanao suffered so much under martial law?
Lupa,
Shall I
ikaw na
start?
sumagot. Ikaw na lang.
Ang question ko is, how many Bangsamoro were respondents in that survey?
Okay.
Kasi, I mean, there are surveys and surveys, but we need to find out how representative the sample it was. Secondly, in the profile of the respondents, kung sino yun sila, but I must also say that even among our friends, and this has caused a lot of division among friends and even relatives, there are still some who believe that a Bongbong Marcos presidency will push the Bangsamoro agenda, and I've been trying my best to argue against that kind of thinking in many of my writing, especially with my opinion columns. And it's true. There are some people who have benefited a lot politically and financially from the long years of martial law. The local datos, for example, who have been co-opted to become the new power holders of today. Of course, they owe their political positions uh, to the grants that Marcos gave them, both in terms of perpetuating the political power and making them have access to uh, resources, including the era, and also making them part of a local elite that try to claim their territories as their own. So you have seen that having a climax in the reign of the Ampatuan family when several local governments in central Mindanao became part of the Ampatuan stronghold, where the names of the localities are after the either the ancestors or the members of the Ampatuan family who have been killed or who died. So actually, it could be the result of having that kind of perk and privilege that were they enjoyed, and even among some students who were scholars, so-called scholars of the Marcoses in the past, they're still uh, loyally advocating that uh, the country will be in better hands if the descendant of Ferdinand Marcos, who's believed to have created a prosperous country, which it's if you look at the records from economic statistics and all that during martial law. I believe it's also because a lot of our young people have not been educated in the horrors of martial law, and I look at it from the point of view as an educator that the materials in social studies in basic education only mentions martial law as a phase in Philippine history, but did not look at the effects of martial law on people, especially on the atrocities I have mentioned in my presentation. So that's the source of the non of the ignorance of the present generation of uh, of what really happened in martial law. And it's a good thing we have this forum now so that our younger people, those who have not been educated along the dark side of those years, would know that it was not all. It's just an illusion being painted by the Marcoses as having that glorious days of like the Marxists are as being gods and goddesses descending from a, a, a mythical Olympus, granting the people their wishes, and that is what Marcos is promising. The junior Marcos is promising to voters that there's going to be. In fact, here in General Santos City, I was told that in some barangays, people are saying that they will just wait for the ATMs to be filled with money as soon as Bongbong becomes president, they don't have to work because they're going to be given ATMs filled with cash. So I was what? so so these things are being promised, and for people who are quite desperate, especially in the times of the pandemic and other financial crises you are facing, especially now with the high prices of basic commodities as a consequence of the war in Ukraine, people are really becoming desperate, and stories like this or promises like this provide like some kind of a north star for them to wish for, and they can really be easily swayed if they are not informed about what really happened during martial law. Thank you.
Thank you. Professor Reveal, would you like to, Professor Reveal, would you like to add to that? Mute.
Sige.
Naka-mute siya.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I don't mind what's happening around me. Yung politika na to. Kasi at my age, I think I spend my time every day to collect news on Mindanao and Sulu every day. So, if you wish to have copies of this, okay lang. But why do I do that? Kasi the problem that I see at the moment is this. Maganda yung point ni Yas. Maganda yung sinabi ni Rupa. Maganda yung question ni Rose Romero. Kasi meron magandang nangyayari sa MSU system. Yan lang ang may system na merong Bangsamoro, Lumad, history. Yung ibang schools wala. But what I discovered in 2001, the teachers themselves do not agree on what to teach the students. We don't have, may nabanggit ni Rupa, wala tayong common material. Now, how do you produce? Honestly, sino ang gagawa? All the time, palagi yung tanong sa akin, sino ang gagawa? Sino ang magsusulat? Maganda yung point ni Yas. No? It's important to record, write, but who will do it? No? Palagi tayo nagtatanong. Wala akong listahan at the moment kung sino-sino yung pwedeng gumawa. So, sa akin, ganito na lang. To make the proper corrections in history, let us train as many people as possible. Kahit step by step muna. While I'm alive, pwede pa akong tumulong yan. After that, hindi ko alam kung sino gagawa. Ganun lang sa akin. Yung attitude ko. I don't care what happens to the election because I cannot go there, stand up with the crowd, waiting looking for the name in the precinct. And yun exposing myself to a bigger problem. So, ayun na lang. Ganun yung attitude ko ngayon. For my own sake. Ngayon na ako nag-iisip ng gano'n. No? Thank you very much.
Carol,
Yeah? Yes, ma'am.
challenge ito sa generations ninyo that to take off from where we are living kasi we are already in the pre-departure areas of our lives. Our flights are just delayed. So, kayo na mag-take the cudgels because as Umpong has said, hindi na kami, we are no longer spring chickens. So, kayo na ang mag-bear the cudgels for the cause that we have been writing about, we have been researching about, So in the meantime, we can guide you while we are still here. But
Sina
anyway,
Ayesa, generation nila Ayesa, Shim and Jerome na yan. Uh, anyway, before we proceed to the next questions, maybe let's just uh, give a brief statistical data lang. I think this is what Ayesa also wanted. Um, the total population of the Philippines as of May 2020, according to the Philippine Statistics Authority, is 109 million.
mm-mm.
Out of that figure, 4.7 million ang population ng BARM. Actually, if you look at the PSA report, it's actually 4.4 million, but that's because the survey was done in May 2020 when Cotabato City and the 63 barangays in villages in North Cotabato, although they already voted for inclusion, were not yet formally incorporated into the BARM. That was done, I think, in late 2020. So during the survey, hindi pa kasali. So kung i-total mo yung 4.4 plus the population of these areas, 4.7 million yan. Out of, according to the Commission on Elections record as of December 14, 2021, out of 65.7 million registered voters in the country, about 2.4 million, 2.3 million ang BARM. Basilan has 214,000 plus, Lanao del Sur 685,000 plus, Maguindanao, vote richest Maguindanao is 818,000 plus, Sulu has 433,000 plus, and Tawi-Tawi has 232,000 plus. Of the 10 presidential candidates, only two candidates have so far visited the BARM during the official campaign period that started February 8. That's Manila Mayor Isko Moreno, February 20 and 21, or was it 21 and 22? And Vice President Leni Robredo, March 16 and 17. Of course, we all know that the next president is going to organize the new composition of the BTA, the Bangsamoro Transition Authority.
Yes.
Lastly, let me talk about women and the elections in the BARM. Out of 269 candidates in the 5 provinces for governor, vice governor, and provincial board members, 229 are men and 40 are women. So that's 85.1% against 14.9% women. Dun sa governors na position for governor, out of 26 running, 23 are men and 3 are women. Dun naman sa cities, out of 116 candidates for mayor, vice mayor, and councilors, 23 are women. Sorry, 93 are men and 23 are women. So that's 80.2% against 19.8%. Dun sa tumatakbo ng mayor, out of 11 running for mayor in the 3 cities, Cotabato, Lamitan, and Marawi, 9 are men and 2 are women. So, yon. Ang pinaka-konting kandidato nasa Sulu. 25 for the provincial, because the positions for governor, vice governor, and the 2 district representatives are all unopposed. Okay. Shim? Ikaw naman, Shim?
I'm trying to bring him back. One moment.
Wala siya.
One moment.
Okay, the BARM vote has always been referred to as
sway vote.
One vote, the swing
vote.
the Command vote, ano pa ba? That the BARM, that the autonomous region is the reservoir of votes, etc. Will that change this May 2022? We only have 52 days to the May 9, 2022 elections. Sa tingin mo, Ma'am Rufa?
Well, related to that, I think is the issue of whether a female presidential candidate is acceptable to moral leaders, and it looks like the way Lenny was accommodated or received by the BARM leadership the other day during the rally. I was in Cotabato that day, but did not get inside the CSU compound. I was just hovering around. I mean, because there was so much traffic, and
Yeah.
I couldn't get in. Um, but by the way, the pronouncements of the two main leaders in the BARM, namely the Chief Minister Ahod Nabalawa Ibrahim, or formerly known as Haji Murad of MILF, and of course the very influential Muhagir Iqbal. Iqbal, in very cryptic terms, said we cannot elect a future president who caused who has the possibility of causing another historical injustice to us, referring to the horrors of martial law. Then Ahod Ibrahim also, for his part, said we welcome the possibility of candidate like Lenny, who's openly voicing out her interest to address historical injustice and to create the some mechanisms for promoting justice for the Bangsamoro. In her speeches, she was always emphasizing that there can be no peace if there is no justice. So I'm saying that they're opening. I mean, unlike before, at the beginning of this what's this political season, I can say, because I'm working in the region right now. I'm often in the region, so I get to know some. I mean, I have some kind of. I feel the pulse of the people I talk to. So there has been a change in their perspective from, from saying that a woman can never lead a country effectively. There has been a change. I mean, they don't say. I was surprised to realize that members of the Ustads group organized the Bangsamoro Supports Lenny for Justice and Peace. And they were the ones who initiated the mobilization of crowds the other day in Cotabato City. They were all, they designed the logo, they were mobilizing people, and I heard that they were mobilizing as many as 20,000 to come. I mean, without any perks to receive, but they were all there voluntarily to see Lenny, enthusiastically waiting for a change in the way things are. And even some elite members of like the Alontos have put pink flags in their residences. I mean, I'm surprised. But it's true. There has been a change, and I hope that change will be translated to a vote, that swing vote in the BARM later. Thank you.
Okay. I think Ayesa wants to say something. Ayesa is senior lecturer at the University Malaysia in Sabah, and is also a member of the 20th Southeast Asian Youth Program. Tama ba, Ayesa?
Yes, Carol. Thank you. Yeah, I just want, again, thank you very much to all our speakers and guests and moderators, and our co-organizers. Yeah, that question that was brought up about how women are perceived as leaders, especially in national leadership among the Bangsamoro group. Yeah, it's a very important issue because some of the more conservative Bangsamoro voters, continue to discuss these issues precisely, especially in social media. So, as I do agree with what Prof. Rufa just mentioned, and maybe just to give you also some more trivia, on how this on how this perception has actually developed over the years. I remember before, during the negotiations between the government of the Philippines and the MILF, when Professor Miriam Coronel Ferrer took over, that was also a very much a concern on the other side, and eventually it was overcome. Eventually, it didn't really matter whether it is a female heading the peace panel, but it's really more of the intention and the principles, behind, and the values, behind that kind of leadership. Similarly, within the MILF, we many thought that the MILF would never welcome, female members in the negotiating panel, but we have seen Attorney Raisa Jajuri, who did very well, as part of the MILF technical working group. She has also experienced many hurdles in the past. The MILF insisting that she must have somebody with her, a male relative, a husband, or an uncle, a companion to go with her in the meetings. But eventually, that has also been overcome. So these kinds of conservative opinion about women in leadership positions, yeah, we have to be practical about these things. And I think because of the experience of the Bangsamoro communities, these are these kinds of perceptions. It's like an urban legend already, but in practice, a lot of the Bangsamoro people, whether they are older generation or younger generation, are already very much educated and well accepting of that kind of leadership. So long as we see a leadership that is reliable, rational, I think women leaders, have taken very good roles in Bangsamoro society and have proven themselves in Bangsamoro society.
Okay, thank you. Jim? Hello, Jim? Yes, I think you wanted to add something about why this forum was organized in the first place.
Yes, okay. Yeah, thank you very much. As mentioned earlier, I think it was, yeah, Carol mentioned it, that this forum is really something that we've been discussing in our alumni group, the Leadership for Southeast Asian Youth Program. You see, for many years, I think the program has been on for more than 25 years. Uh, every year, the government of Japan would organize young diplomats or ambassadors of goodwill in all the ASEAN member countries. I was one of the members of this SEAP program from the Philippines, together with my friend Elnora. So it's really a good place, for solidarity among Filipino groups, young Filipinos, and among young ASEAN people, and together with the Japanese youth. So this is really our platform, to encourage more solidarity, not only in ASEAN but also within Philippines. So this is why with this election, we are very much concerned, with what's going to happen in these elections in May 22, and we hope that we can also reach out, especially to the young people, that this election is not something that they can just easily put their vote. We hope that everybody, especially the young people, will think about, who are they voting in power, with the presidential, the vice president, and all the senators, because we are at a time now in the Philippines that we really need to have some credibility in terms of our leadership. I live in Malaysia for quite some time now, and I have been active in ASEAN, where I do attend ASEAN meetings, particularly in the ASEAN Women Peace Registry. And really, it's kind of frustrating that within ASEAN leadership, uh, yeah, we really need to resurrect our image. It's not a matter of the image, but our credibility as a nation. So it is high time that we put into power leaders that really deserve our vote and deserve our respect, and hopefully that leader will make sure that the Bangsamoro peace process will continue to be implemented, and that the whole Philippines will finally have better leadership. Thank you, Carol.
Okay. Shim, are you back? Okay, I think
Yeah.
okay. Shim?
Yes, Miss Carol. Yes po, maraming salamat on that.
Okay.
May mga follow-up questions pa ata. Yeah, I
Okay,
think
go ahead.
this goes to any of our speakers. Okay, thank you. This goes to all of the speakers. The question is from a texter. Madami na hong mga dokumento na nag-discuss about the illegal wall and everything. Pero na hindi madami. Hello? Yes. Hello?
Are you on the road?
Can you hear
Are
me?
you on the road? Are you on the road?
You're chopping.
Yeah.
What?
Okay. Yes, I'm on the road, but I'm stopping now.
Okay. Can you stop muna? Oh, okay. Sige.
Okay.
And stop a while and then,
So I think the question is, yeah. So ang katanungan nila, totoo nga ba na merong historical revisionism na nangyayari sa ngayon, and why and how is it affecting the entire narratives, pati na rin itong sa election na ito, gaano ba ito ka-importante, and what could be the gaps with the reason why historical revisionism is happening right now? Any of the speakers? Siguro si Doc Rufa or si...
Maybe Carol can repeat that question, and then if you can turn on your mic.
actually,
Yeah.
I couldn't really understand.
Okay, I will try to help rephrase the question. I think it was posted. Okay, Shim, can you turn off your mic? Yeah. One of the question is that if the historical revisionism is happening with these elections, and why is it happening, especially among the youth? Maybe one of the person who can help us best answer this would be Yasmira. Yasmira, what is the temperament of the young people, especially in Iligan? Marami bang naniniwala that, martial law will not happen again? That even though Marcos in particular, kahit na anak siya, that hindi naman siya daw yung puno ng martial law. Ano yung mga usapin sa mga kabataan ngayon? How do they look at Marcos as a candidate?
The thing right now is that truly the way politics is being done in the country um, is of course there's COVID. It's still the pandemic, and most young people, especially the Gen Zers, so to speak, no, the tech savvy generation is heavily relying on social media. No, so this by meant, I mean, aside from the Filipinos and is the number one in terms of the FB usage. Many also rely on other social media outlets, popularly the TikTok University, the YouTube, and it's so sad, because truly, I mean, historical revisionism is not bad per se, right? Because history is never neutral, and it's also, I believe, is dynamic. Like, I mean, for such a long time, the Bangsamoro history is not even, it's hindi lang siya nire-refuse, hindi din siya talaga nakasulat. But now, as challenge, no, at ito yung challenge, no, ni Sir Umpong, at ito lagi niyang sinasabi sa akin, Yasmira, magsulat ka tungkol sa kasaysayan ng Bangsamoro, na kung saan, di ba, yung mga kababaihan naman talaga, very, hindi lang yan sila, at the behind, no, they are side by side with
their men fighting, no, for their liberation and eventual freedom, no, and here we go. We have the Bangsamoro, we have the Barm, and true enough, no, what is happening right now is basically disinformation. We're not even talking about historical revisionism per se, which many would still would look at as not bad per se. But what is happening really is disinformation, which is a deliberate misleading of the public about what really happened, no, in that part of our nation's history. Ito po, no, let me share. No, in one of our neighbor here, I'm residing in the northern part of Lanao, no, here in Linamon. So I was listening to my youngest sister, and she was like, "Ate, alam mo ba, sabi nung kapitbahay natin, iboboto daw nila, no, yung si BBM dahil yung tatay daw niya ay siyang parang finight daw niya, no. Siya daw nakipaglaban sa mga Espanyol." So that kind of thing. I was like, okay, let me correct that one, and saan yung kapitbahay natin? Puntahan natin, no? Kasi kailangan nating. So eto, no, saan ito nanggagaling na mga false information? No, saan ito nanggagaling? And there, as I was engaging my sister in more conversation, this is by the way personal account, kasi ganito talaga, very personalized, customized, no, yung labanan ngayon sa campaign, no, and sinasabi nila na kasi spliced video, no, and one of the Philippine scholar of political history, Dr. Patricia Abinales, no, in one of his talk acknowledged that, if there's one savvy politician who was able to appreciate the power of social media, no, is the Marcoses. And they were really doing all this kind of revisioning, trying to cover what happened, no, the rampant corruption, the human rights violations, and they were highlighting that infrastructure, the golden years of the martial law that was truly never golden, because if then that was a golden years of history, then it is sana ngayon, 'di ba? Parang truly, parang we're even far from Malaysia, or like sinasabi nila gusto natin maging Singapore, no, or that sinasabi nila we want a disciplined society, but forgetting that hindi nga natin isinasa puso ang ating responsibilidad bilang mga voters, no, na ang eleksyon na isa lamang mekanismo upang ang mga sinasabi natin ngayon ay masabi pa natin sa susunod na henerasyon, no. At ito yung lagi ko ang sinasabi, no, in all the fora that I get to attend to, online and offline, no. Ang kasaysayan ay hindi po neutral, no. At ako bilang isang Moro, bilang isang Pilipina, no, lagi ko pong kailangang i-explain, no, ang aking sarili, ang aking pagkakakilanlan. Bakit? Kasi hindi po ako nakasulat sa kasaysayan. Yung aking mga magulang, yung aking mga ancestor, nasa lang siya, footnote lang po siya, no, doon sa Philippine nationalist history. Samantalang kung titingnan natin na yung nationalist movement, no, nagsimula po siya sa Mindanao. So eto lamang po, no. So I think ang malaking usapin ngayon is the machinery of disinformation that is deliberately used to mislead the people, no? And this very popular candidate that is denying what happened during that period of martial law. That's my challenge to fellow young people. Read and read beyond the headlines and know the context, why things happen the way they are up until now. Maraming salamat po.
Yes, Mira. Susugan ko lang yung sinabi mo. So maybe you and some of us participating here can collaborate. Let's not leave YouTube University and TikTok University to people who are malicious in sharing false information. Na talagang, exploitative and meant to mislead. Kailangan din nating tapatan kasi hari talaga sila in those arena eh. At ang daming naniniwala kasi if madali lang paniwalaan, kung idadala lang sa delivery, very believable kung hindi naman malalim yung pag-intindi natin. If that's the kind of information they're consuming, so naturally, they will also...
Hello? Just a very brief addendum. Um, ang problema kasi sa mga karamihan ng historical facts and figures are not easy to access na katulad ng digital media na yung puro fake news at disinformation ang nandyan sa digital media, no, and other alternative social media platforms. Yung historical facts, you have to dig them up. Like, for example, as I used to be editor of Mindanao Cross, and Mindanao Cross is probably the only very important historical resource because it was published starting in 1948. So, lahat ng contemporary history ng Central Mindanao are there. And that is even why Thomas McKenna was able to write that his dissertation. And even Jojo Abinales, na-mention ni Yasmira, I helped Jojo go through the old files na at that time becoming brittle because of the anide that was eating up the paper. And that's why I recommended to digitize the Mindanao Cross, the old files of Mindanao Cross. And they are now thankfully housed at the Ateneo de Manila Library, digitized versions of the old files of Mindanao Cross, although missing some years because there was some years where nasunog or nawala yung mga files noon. But basically, kung i-access mo yung digital files ng Mindanao Cross, meron pa doon sa Ateneo. So, yun ang isa yata na challenge for our researchers, young researchers who want the easy way out to do research. Just Google and rely on Professor Wikipedia or Professor Google to look at things without verifying kung na-triangulate ba ito or is this based on accurate information based on historical accounts. So, yun ang isang sinasabi ko sa mga estudyante ko. Kung mag-research ka, huwag diretso lang na maniwala sa kung anong nakalagay doon sa social media or sa kasi even Wikipedia itself cautions readers to make an effort to verify the sources of information that are already contained there. Although largely ma-reliable naman. But especially now when there is a battle of hearts and minds to pull younger people into the discourses of looking at history as something to be wiped out, especially the blood history of the Bangsamoro struggle for self-determination. That I find very repulsive on the part of those who want to erase that completely from the Philippine national historical narrative. It's very sad that some people look at it from that point of view, where Bangsamoro history is considered an adjunct to the larger Philippine national historical narrative. When in fact, if you go by, if there was no Spanish invasion to the Philippines, it might have been a totally different country that we are now having, and it might not be named Philippines after all. I mean, but having said that, since what happened was what happened, we need to be very cautious about our sources of where we get our historical facts. That we, if we are, I mean, we have to challenge our students in history and social sciences to make sure that whatever sources of history they get would be something that has been corroborated by other sources, not just only one source, because it's that's also how people in violent extremism distort Islamic precepts in order to force their agenda for extremist behavior. So the same way, if we want to make our youth well informed about what happened in the past, we need to exert a lot of effort to go back to recorded history in newspapers published in areas like Cotabato City, because they are like the chronicles of the past. They are news reports, so they are verified. They have sources that can be looked at, and you can also look at reports from police blotters about the massacres that have happened. So things like this would help you craft a future compilation of Bangsamoro history that will be more in keeping with what really happened, not on what was imagined to be happened by a group of people hired as trolls by the Marcoses. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rufa and Yas, for responding to that question. I hope my audio is now very, very clear. We will now nearing to close this webinar, but before we end this, may importante katanungan muna tayo, and perhaps we could ask si Ma'am Carol if you have a question to ask to all of the speakers.
No, go ahead, Jim.
Sige po. Bago ito lisanin yung ating webinar, siguro pinaka-importante katanungan, this upcoming election, we would like to ask our speakers to guide us, to guide itong ating mga botante. What would be the best bet for the Philippine candidate? Ano ba yung hinahanap natin? Well, we have the basic qualifications, but yung pagsiset natin ng standard in selecting the right leader for the country. That's going to be 6 years again for the country. Any thoughts on that? Siguro kay Yas, Professor Rudy, and Dr. Rufa.
Okay, unahan ko na Shim, no? Kuya Shim. All right. Ito talaga, no? Politics is the upcoming May 9 election is truly a deal breaker, no, for the Bangsamoro peace process. This is a kind of a revelation, no, because one of the national candidate, no, has always been consistent with her advocacy, about the peace process in Mindanao. When there was this national program under the office of the current vice president launch the Angat Buhay program, I was actually tapped to do a particular to comment, no, or give feedback about the module, or sort of like an AB peace in Mindanao curriculum. No, I was so touched first because the voice of a young Mindanaoan Amora woman was considered in that kind of peace education that is for not just for the Mindanaoan youth but for the rest of the country. Secondly is that there's that because the peace process is a political process, no, at kailangan po natin ng leaders na tumutugon doon sa paglalakbay nating mga Pilipino tungo sa isang bansa na merong pagkilala sa boses ng minorities who were minoritized because of our nation's systematic of our nation's history, no, of colonization, and of course systemic discrimination, which we are addressing, no, with this ongoing peace process, bottom up and top down. And so para sa akin, no, bilang isang botante, no, and I don't speak for my institution, I will vote for the candidate that is showing her nurturing leadership, no, since coming into office, no, may resibo po ang kanyang mga ginagawa, at hindi po siya, no, yung ano talaga nun, pero yung mga taong natulungan niya, no, like the Sumilaw farmers in Bukidnon. She was the lawyer of the Sumilaw farmers, no, so meron din po talaga, no, through and through yung kanyang social justice advocacy, no, at pinapatunayan po iyon ng mga tao. So politics is communication, no, and I believe that communication is also truly proven not just through speech but through action. So yun po, no, bumoto po tayo ng alam nating subok na at may track record po dahil, no, public office is a public trust. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Yash. Can we also hear from Dr. Rufa?
Ah, isang siguro hindi lang isa. One top uh, variable I'm looking at from candidates is their consistency right at the start of their political career. Walang changing colors, walang balimbingan, walang iwanan ng mga kasamahan right at the very beginning. Kasi a lot of the political frontliners for president, they've changed colors several times. Pag anong pabor sa kanila ibigay, magpalit sila kaagad. So that's one, consistency in purpose and in his or her performance as a political ano. And another thing is the disdain for perpetuating the family in power. And I've seen that being done in among many candidates. There's a lot of if we go by sibling relationships, if these people will be elected, will be the only country with a senate that has siblings, mother and son, uh, uh, what's this? Father and daughter as senators, and it's also worse in the House of Congress. And I believe that any candidate who is promoting the no to dynasty law or proposed bill is anyone that I can trust. So that's another feature. The other thing, of course, is track record. BBM, for example, when he was representative of his province, he was governor, and he was even called one of the absentee governors. He was in places other than his own office. And I am using the term user friendly in his case because he is fond of using the accomplishments of other people as his own. For example, he uses the if you recall his campaign pitch in his advertisements is the windmills in Bangi wind farm in Ilocos Norte. He did not cause that to happen. It was a donation from the Danish investment of $48 million, and it was carried out by a private commercial enterprise. And he himself admitted that it was so. But he's making it appear that he's using that, and that's why he says, babangon tayo muli, because he is able to push agendas for economic development forward when he becomes president, which is not true. And he has lied several times about his degree from Oxford, about his alleged. And if you say that the crimes of the father are not the crimes of the son, that's true. But what did he do during the time that all those things were happening? He was watching it. He was part of it too, by letting it go without reaction, without anything, without having to to even to apologize for that in later years. So uh, a candidate whose love for political power, whose greed for political power transcends generations of their families, I would have very serious questions about his sincerity to be really serving the people, but rather than serving their own political interests. And of course, again, track record in terms of performance. What did he do? He did not pass significant laws when he was a representative and as a senator. The only thing I recall that he was able to help pass, is the law postponing the barangay elections. But compared to other people who have been very actively performing the duties as mandated by law, Bongbong Marcos has not done anything significant. So that's why I'm trying to always advocate that we vote for, we don't put our votes on people who have claimed empty promises or empty slogans like "I love you all" or "We will unite." You need to have a concrete platform of government to tell us what you want to do when you'll be elected as president and as senator or whatever. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rufa. So far, we're hearing important qualities. Consistency is on top of it. The track record, untarnished and unquestionable track record, and also a clear platform. So yun yung mga hinahanap sana natin. I hope the Filipino people are watching and be given the chance to think these over. And we will be asking also si Professor Rudy. Sir Prof, ano po yung sa inyo? Kung kayo po'y mangi-endorso sa darating na Halalan, ano pong dapat na tingnan ng ating mga kababayan ng mga qualifications?
Sir Rudy is muted.
Pwede po kayo mag-unmute for Fruity?
Ayan. Ang attention ko, nandiyan wala sa eleksyon, andun pa rin ako sa history. Let the young people write in their own language. We have 1 century to do it. Doon natin maaayos yung corrections na dapat gawin. Ganun lang.
Okay, there you have it. Let the young people know their history. So bigyan natin sila ng tama, hindi fabricated na mga na kwento at naratibo ng ating kasaysayan. And also, we'd like to ask Doc Ayesha Abubakar to share her points of view. Yes, Doc Ayesha, you're on air now.
Yeah.
Kayo po.
Yeah.
Anong ba't
Okay. Maraming salamat, Shim and Carol. Yeah, unfortunately, I cannot vote here in Malaysia, although I used to be an absentee voter. But for some reason, in the last election, when Duterte became president, I was not able to vote because of some COMELEC technical issues that they stopped doing the absentee voting. So I'm a disenfranchised, absentee voter here in Malaysia. Yeah, but if I may, may suggest, especially to young people and to everybody who's listening in our program today, I would really encourage them. Similarly with and Yasmira and Prof. Lufa, it's very clear among the presidentiables and the vice presidentiables who are the consistent leaders, okay, not the traditional politicians. I do have a high respect towards Leni Robredo, even before she became our vice president, knowing her background, as a lawyer, who has always been doing human rights work, especially in the rural areas in our country. So that in itself, shows you the kind of character that she has, and as a very much, a role model of as a wife and as a mother. I myself, I'm also a wife, to somebody who's a leader and in his profession, and I'm also a mother, and I know how difficult it is, to continue your own career, to do your own service to your own people at the same time, to have all this responsibility. So for that, I have only but great respect for Leni Robredo, and I think if she is given the opportunity, she will be a very good president for all of us. The same manner with Vice President. I have had a chance to meet Kiko Pangilinan even before he became senator. I remember I was a high school student in Kidapawan, Cotabato, and I've always read about the leaders in UP Diliman. So finally, when I was able to get into UP Diliman, and this was in the late 1980s, of course, my idols then were Kiko Pangilinan and Dave Saldran as the chair of the political governing councils in in UP. So, and then I have met and invited one time Kiko Pangilinan. He was then a counselor in Quezon City, but he is so humble. He's as a person. He had no diva type of attitude, and he is very much in touch, with what is happening in the country. And for that, I salute him with his intelligence, and he really it shows no over the years. While he may have carved a life of a politician, to me, he is not your traditional negative politician at all. He has always been consistent with his career and his advocacy and service to all of us, to Filipinos. So I do have also high regards towards Kiko Pangilinan, and I do hope that he will be given the chance to become a vice president. Yeah. Thank you for asking, Shim. But yeah, sa lahat, I hope that you consider, really choosing the best people to be our new president and vice presidents. Salamat.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Yasha. Quickly, also, can we ask also Elnora and Ma'am Putri to share their points of views on the siguro Miss Elnora?
I will take off from our forum. It has been very informative, and especially yung issue on disinformation in social media. We cannot help and we cannot change anymore that there's like a huge population that's highly dependent on social media in getting their information. Kasi para siyang entertainment information for them It's easy, they're relaxing and they go to this. Unfortunately, in this arena, most of the information is yung dominated na siya by, the tech savvy and people who have already tried and tested that if they just put out information out there, wala silang pakialam if some people will see it as false. They'll just share it because anyway, this process, maraming maniniwala sa kanila. And over time, they have been at it since 2000. Kung titingnan mo yung mga YouTube channels nila, Facebook channels, etc. They have been at this since 2000. So, a long time na rin. So, nakaipon na sila ng followers and avid and invested believers of the information they share. And so ang problema natin is that yung as pointed out, hindi lang revisionism, it's really disinformation. And I think moving forward as a next step to what we have done right now, maybe we can create content from this that's fit for social media consumption.
Thank you, Miss Elnora. Can we also listen from Ma'am Putri?
Assalamualaikum.
Salam.
Assalamualaikum. Maayong buntag Pilipinas. Good morning also in New York. Wala lang, hindi mo lang marinig dito ang tilaok ng manok. So, I am very glad that this happened, this session happened, and hopefully we'll continue using Rinayung, exposing the truth, because I'm in the generation where a witness of history, a witness of the divisiveness of the Moro-Christian war in Mindanao. I have experienced a life as an indigenous Maranao that I enjoyed life without currency, without cash currency. Kung gutumin ka, umakyat ka ng bayabas o mamulot ka ng mga mangga. Kung mabait na bata ka, pipirituhan ka ng auntie mo ng maruya. And then when there's lightning and thunder at night, you're very happy because there are mushrooms in the meadows. That was short-lived when the coming of the four-wheel drive into the depths of Lanao and cut all the trees, and then militarization happened. So I was a child, and going forward, I became a political prisoner at 13 at the 431st PC Company in Davao. I was a student. I was picked up, and I was able to go back to school with guard. Actually, I go home in the bars. it just happened that the commanding officer is a kind religious person who's the president of United Church of Christ, and he said like, anong kinabukasan mo bata ka? And I told him I want to go back to school, sir. I want to be a nurse. So he went out of his way and said, okay, you can go to school but come back here. So for me, during that time, my coping mechanism is, okay, free board and lodging. May guardia pa. But I have witnessed, I don't want to talk more about this. I wrote all of this in the class suit against Marcos that was submitted in Hawaii. And I really fear going home if that junior will come back, because I'm in the last phase, last league of my life that I want to go home. I want to enjoy life. I left the Philippines in a hurry because I was in the newspaper. I was in the headlines that nurse turned NPA killed, and I haven't gone home until after Marcos was dethroned. So if I talk about this in Facebook, I get attacks from loyalists of Marcos. Look, bakit ka nakulong? So if I tell my story, I'm being suppressed. Up to now, that suppression that I have experienced when I was a child, I'm being suppressed in social media. It is not kind for Filipinos to stand for somebody that they don't even experience the horrors of martial law. They don't experience how to evacuate because the houses where your houses were burned in front of you. You don't have any properties anymore. So I have experienced two martial laws then, the Marcos regime and the 2017 seeds of Marawi, where we lost our ancestral homes. So anyhow, I'm warned to do it this short closing. Um, yes, we have to write history, and tonight is actually part of that history that has to be written. If this is recorded, if we can transcribe this can become a book, and we have to continue remembering and translate it into writing. And that's how we are encouraging young people to to gather information from the generation like my generation and Kaka Rudel's generation, to be part of the witnessing of the truth. So in New York, we put that story into theater. So if you have a chance, go to our website. Our last production, Pananadem, it's there. It's my story actually during the time of martial law, Marcos martial law, and then it ended up in the campaign of Kambalingan, the second martial law that I have experienced in my lifetime. So please visit our website. You will see and appreciate it because it is two oral tradition. The Darangen, the chapter 6, 5, and 6, we intertwined it with the history that is also oral tradition. So try to see. And that's our approach here as artists. Anyhow, thank you very much, and hopefully we can meet again sometime in the near future to do debriefing and maybe continue our conversation in a Zoom. I know we are all busy, and what can I say? I'm very thankful that you are here, guys. I just want to mention um, two women, Muslim women, two Marana women who are running, Amira Lidasan and Samira Gutuk. So I don't know much what is going on right now with them, which flag are they running, but I'm hoping that they will be part of that elected officials to represent us, Bangsamoro, in whatever position they're in. So I'm wearing pink right now, and I have a pink fan. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. In here, I would like to end our webinar with the salutation that Kinding Sindaw has developed since 30 years. In honor of our ancestors who created and transmitted to us this tradition, with open hearts, minds, and spirit, we'd like to take them in as we and use it to empower us as we walk our path. So I would like to say, in honor of our ancestors who created and transmitted this tradition to us, we'd like to take it in mind, body, and soul. And with humility, we bow as we use it to empower us as we walk our path. So that's the correct version, the second one. Thank you. And can we have a photo, Jerome?
Pwede po, but we'll have Kuya Shim close us out as well.
So where is Vivian? Can she join?
She's here. 1 sec.
Carol, wala na.
Magigiting ng mga speakers. So we have si Professor Rudy Rudel, Dr. Rufa Giam, and Professor Yasmin Muner. Kasama na rin yung ating mga colleagues na nakatabi dito. We have Ma'am Eleanor. And ang dami ho nating natutunan. We're hoping that, especially the younger ones, will try to be more critical. Bakit natin ito pinag-uusapan ng kasaysayan? Bakit kailangan ulit-ulitin natin itong intindihin? I hope this will guide us in selecting the future that we all want to have. At sa pamamagitan nito, hindi natin mauulit yung mga pagkakamali na nangyari sa ating bansa. At kailangan natin makialam sa lahat ng ito. We're hoping that this webinar has somehow tickled your curiosity to know the truth, stand for the truth, and speak for the truth. We need to decide kung ano yung pinakatama para sa ating lahat. Thank you so much to the SEA, to the Shipper Southeast Asian Youth Program alumni for organizing this, the Kinding Sindaw, and the Mindanao News, the Minda News, as well as the Moropreneur Incorporated. Sa lahat ho ng mga bumubuo nito mula sa aming kasama, si Miss Caroline Aguiles na may klase na ngayon. Kaya kailangan ho niyang umalis kaagad. And of course, to Doc Ayesha Abubakar for leading, and Ma'am Putri in organizing all of these. To Jerome and to Viv, we wanted to say thank you. And I hand it over to Jerome for any further statement. Jerome?
Yes. Whoa, I lost my voice for a second. Thank you so much, Kuya Shim. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out with us. It's a lot of information to digest, so let it sit, let it marinate for 5 days, come back, ask questions. You can view this on our Facebook because it is going to be there forever. Two real quick things. We have two performances next week, March 24th, 6:30 p.m. That's a Thursday at Cooper Union, right by NYU. And then we have another performance at Newark Museum of Art in Newark, New Jersey on March 26th. That is a Saturday starting at 12 o'clock. Both are free to attend. And I know all you students who are staying up late and watching this, you love free stuff because I did too when I was a student. So come through, engage yourself in the culture, and join us as well. So now, Viv, if you could take a quick screenshot, because I forgot how to do that on my laptop.
Maybe Viv wants to say something too.
I'm okay. Thank you.
All right.
1 second. Let me get. Is everyone on the screen? Hold up. Do that.
Yes. Hold on.
Okay. Right.
Ready.
So I realized that with snipping tool, I actually can't do the same thing.
Oh, I got it.
Oh, okay.
Ready? 3, 1, 2, 3. Hold it. And hold. Done. All right, great. Thank you so much, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.
We are going to send you your certificate of appreciation. And we're hoping to be signed by our board of director, like Lloyda Nicholas Lewis. And you can display it in your office. And hopefully we can organize again something like this in the future. I'm very, very happy that you're able to share this. And kayo dyan, mga Filipino-Americans, gisingin nyo ang sarili nyo at ang inyong mga nanay at tatay. Please, we would like to go home and retire in the Philippines with a very beautiful governance. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your night and enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay, Assalamualaikum.